rescue down off of North Gable Road where another individual had driven off into the water. So at that same time, we split resources from this scene to the other North Gable Road call, successfully pulled that victim out of that and reallocated the resources back here.
So, and it should also be added that while they were doing that, we were here. The other ESD got broken away to go handle 2 vehicle crashes with entrapments, yes. And one of those was a fatality. They all came right back to where they were, where we were, threw on a wetsuit and got back into the water. I can't say enough good things about the rest of these agencies that helped us out, the school district police, DPS, both of these ESDs, Acadian Ambulance, the Schertz Fire Department that came over with their boat twice today. It's just been a whole lot of resources, and the chiefs and I all reached the same conclusion that if you didn't know any better, you'd swear all these agencies had been working together day in, day out for years on end. Many of us just met for the first time today, and I mean, I got to tell you, to see fire chiefs out there in wetsuits pulling kids out of cars, that my hat's off to them in the best way possible. I mean, these are just true professionals, true heroes. I can't say enough good things about them.
¿Podría decirnos en español?
Sí.
Encontraron al cuerpo de la niña, falta recuperar el otro.
Sí, esta mañana, como ustedes saben, 2 carros se hundieron en el agua. Aquí en North Greytown Road. Nosotros trabajamos con los bomberos y con otras agencias durante el día.
All right, if you're just joining us here for the 6 o'clock news, a lot of detail came out of that heartbreaking news conference, a development following those heavy rains and flooding that we saw last night and into this morning. What we know now, 2 vehicles were swept away, and as of this point, a woman who was reported missing remains in 16 feet of water. Rescuers there saying it's currently just too dangerous for them to get to that vehicle to make that recovery. But they did find the body of a 5-year-old girl who was in one of those 2 vehicles swept away by that water.
And it's hard not to get caught up in the emotion when you hear the rescuers, the first responders who were out there talking about how tough a scene this was in the 16 feet of water. They tried to get the vehicle out that the 52-year-old woman was inside. They could not, because they're not only dealing with 16 feet of water and a strong current, they're also dealing with an undertow. And we also got more clarification on a little 5-year-old girl who we thought was missing. They did recover her body. There are 2 separate vehicles we're talking about, one where they recovered the 5-year-old's body and one that the body of a 52-year-old woman is still inside. Our Alicia Barrera has been on the scene all afternoon. She's been listening to this news conference. Alicia, talk about the emotions that are out there. I mean, we heard the sheriff say he heard the 911 call from this presumably 52-year-old woman who passed away, talking about the conditions that she was seeing all around her and the terror that was in her voice. I mean, I was also struck by the first responders and how emotional they were in this news conference.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so can you imagine it's believed that they were driving to school. There wasn't much sunlight at that point, so everything was dark. This woman, 52-year-old woman who has yet to be identified, she calls 911 and she's asking for help. She's giving them a play-by-play of what she's seeing, of what they're experiencing in that vehicle. And that happened about half a mile from where I'm standing down this Greytown Road. And for first responders, the first ones to respond here, I believe ESD 10, there's about 6 of them here. And they just describe this as scary. They know that the kids are involved, so they're wanting to help them. So here's what we know so far. In one of the vehicles, and there was a lot of confusion, and understand that this is a very fluid situation, but in one of the vehicles, we know there was an adult male and a total of 3 children. 2 of those kids did make it out, but that is where that 5-year-old unfortunately passed away. They did retrieve her body. Medical examiner has taken custody of her, and her family has been notified of that recovery. In that second vehicle, just about 10 yards away, so not far, that's where that adult woman with 2 children inside were. The kids, they made it out. The 52-year-old woman did not, and that area was very deep, 16 feet down below. And the crazy thing about that situation is that those children, they didn't stay at that car. They are extended families. And when I say they, those two vehicles, those two families, they're relatives. So those two children make it out of that car and make it to the first vehicle where that adult male was. So the kids knew how to react. It was a very scary situation. I did ask about the fact that possibly some had been clinging on to trees, and first responders cleared up here that at least one of the males and one of those children were hanging on to the trees, and they were able to rescue them. But this was really just a joint effort between state, local, authorities. We know Shirts, they brought out their boat over here. DPS, they had several personnel, including part of their dive team. We did see BCSO bring some of their horse patrol out here. So this was just an ongoing effort, and really it doesn't end here, because due to the fact that the current is way too strong, that second vehicle, along with the body of that 52-year-old woman, are still in that creek. So right now, we know that they did have to stop their efforts at 6:30. It's about that time. So we'll know they'll have to continue tomorrow, or perhaps when it's safer.
Every last detail of this situation is just heartbreaking.
It is.
And you could hear that in the voices of these first responders as they were giving us those details. You talk about the fact, Alicia, that these are two families. I mean, this is two cars, two groups of people, but one family now impacted by this tremendous loss. And to know that this recovery effort is going to happen again, as you said, again tomorrow, because it's just simply too dangerous right now for first responders to get to that woman's body. We heard from the assistant chief with that ESD that you mentioned, talking about when he got to one of those vehicles.
Yes. Open the door.
The kids coming out and just clinging to him. And that it gives me chills to think about. And then he also talked about how this should not have happened. This shouldn't have happened. So do we know if in that area, were there any kind of barricades or high water crossing signs, anything that gave anyone an indication that this was not an area to be in?
So that is something that is still under investigation. It was a question that was being asked from very early on. Our first crew here was Katrina Weber and photojournalist Timmy, and they were out here asking those same questions. We know that that's going to be turned over to CID. They're going to be taking over that investigation and seeing if there were any barricades, or if there were those barricades swept away. And so you get a better idea of where we're standing. It's a narrow road, and the road is what divides that creek. So that's why that flood water just rose very quickly and ended up, sweeping those cars into the creek. So at this point, that is not confirmed. We do not know if there were any flashing lights. And this is really where we've been standing. We haven't really been able to get any closer. The images that we're able to show our viewers at home is because of Chopper. So right now, that's something, Myra, that we are still waiting for answers to.
Alicia, one more question before we let you go, because I know you've been out there all day. Did you ever see any, what you believe were family members out there that were watching as this operation took place?
That was actually surprising not to see anyone out here. We saw several vehicles, dozens of vehicles make their way through here, a lot of them with flashing lights. So, of course, that's signaling authorities. But we were keeping our eyes on the vehicles to see if we saw any family, but that just wasn't the case. And again, I want to mention that it's believed that these families were headed to school. It was right before 7 a.m. when this all unfolded. And one of those schools, the school of that 5-year-old, I can literally see it. We could see the playground from where we're standing. So it is a little surprising not to have seen family. Perhaps we missed them, but from where it's barricaded off of here, we didn't see anyone else but media standing in this area, Steve.
Alicia Barrera reporting live from the scene. Thank you, Alicia. Appreciate all the great reporting that you've been doing today. And to reiterate kind of what we were talking about earlier, is it was about 10 a.m. when a lot of those first responders say they knew this was switching from a rescue operation to a recovery operation. And again, this call came in about 7 a.m. this morning that a couple of cars have been swept away. And one of those calls actually coming from inside one of those vehicles. And they believe it was that 52-year-old woman whose body is still in that creek at this hour who was making that call.
And the sheriff talking about hearing that 911 call, how gut-wrenching those details were as she described what was happening. But again, we know an extended family in 2 different vehicles on their way to school, one with a man and several children inside, a 5-year-old girl from inside that vehicle. Her body has been recovered late this afternoon from that swollen creek. We know the second vehicle, there was a woman, a 52-year-old woman. She is the one who still remains under 16 feet of water that investigators say is right now just simply too dangerous for them to make that recovery. They're going to continue that effort tomorrow after they get through the night. Hopefully those waters go down. And there were 2 children inside that vehicle as well that did make it out safely.
And, we say it so often, turn around, don't drown. I don't want it to become a cliche, because this shows you the power of Mother Nature. This shows you the power of what, 2 small creeks in an area in East Bexar County took at least 2 people's lives this morning.
We'll be right back. We want to let you know we're going to continue following that recovery operation, the breaking news out of far East Bexar County. But for now, we're going to turn to the COVID-19 daily briefing, the update now twice weekly on the latest case numbers in our community.
The numbers have been trending very well. And just also to note, they've been trending so well that they're going to go from 2 daily briefings down to just 1 daily briefing. It's believed that this will be the last Thursday briefing. They will go to just Tuesdays. Gives you certainly an indication of how they think the battle against coronavirus is going here in town. Let's go live to City Hall.
Our COVID-19 update for the San Antonio community. Today we are reporting 249 new cases of COVID-19. Our 7-day moving average has dropped to 328. Sadly, we are still reporting new deaths due to COVID-19, 2 new deaths this evening. Please keep those who we've lost and those they've left behind in your prayers this evening. We've lost too many of our friends and neighbors to this disease. In our hospitals tonight, there are 393 patients. We're glad to be under 400 for the first time in quite a while. There were 39 new admissions in the last 24 hours, 148 patients in the ICU and 75 on ventilators with COVID-19. 70% of patients in area hospitals are unvaccinated. 11 patients are children. In terms of our vaccination rates, we do have good news to report. Metro Health is continuing efforts to get eligible people vaccinated. As of today, in terms of eligible population, again, that's everybody that is 12 and up, 90.7% of eligible population have received at least 1 dose, and 75.6% of eligible population are fully vaccinated. Please remember, though, that children younger than 12 are still not eligible for vaccination, and that means we still have a considerable ways to go for our community to be fully vaccinated. We're also reporting a new number, and that is the people who have received a booster shot of COVID-19 vaccine. You can see that on our website, and as of today, 60,333 people have received their booster since mid-August. Let's continue to double down on our mitigation measures and step up to get vaccinated. We are doing better every single week, and we thank you for your efforts. Keep in mind, we need to continue to make progress and lower those numbers as we get closer to the holiday season so we can enjoy being together this year. We're making great progress to get people vaccinated, and that is good news. So let me turn it over now to Commissioner Rodriguez.
Great. Thank you, Mayor. And great news. I think we'd all agree that we're trending in the right direction. The first time, I think, since sometime in mid-July that our hospital numbers have been under 400. So that looks very good, very promising. Of course, we all want to be remembered that it's not any time to let our guard down. We need to make sure we continue to mask up and encourage our friends and families to get vaccinated. And the booster, in addition to the flu shot, and we know it's also flu season. Want to remind folks, in addition to the Metro Health sites, we also have a University Health System site that is going to be going up for this Saturday morning on the 16th from 8 a.m. till noon out at Nelson Wolff Stadium. Free flu shots. 6 months of age and older, please come out, get yourself protected against the regular flu, in addition to all the good work we put in terms of getting this battle going against COVID. So again, this Saturday morning, 8 a.m. to 12 noon at Nelson Wolff Stadium, please come out, get a free drive-through flu shot. So you don't even have to get out of your car. Make it as convenient as possible. So we look forward to seeing you out there. Thank you, Mayor.
Great. Thank you, Commissioner. And as a reminder, flu shots are also available at all Metro Health vaccine pop-up clinics. As the Commissioner said, we are getting towards the height of the flu season, so please get your flu shot while you also stop by for your COVID-19 vaccine. For those who have not.
All right, the numbers there still showing signs of progress in our community when it comes to COVID. One thing that stood out to me, 11 children hospitalized with COVID-19. That is nearly cut in half from what we have been seeing. It's been roughly 20 to 30 kids or so who have been in the hospital. 249 new cases. That's a big drop from the daily case rate since July. We haven't seen that number really dip below 400 up to this point.
Yeah, and the vaccination rate, also eligible people who've received the vaccination, received the first dose, 90.7% in Bexar County. That's great. Fully dosed, 75.6%. Again, these are people who can get the vaccine. And then a little more than 60,000 people have received their booster shots so far.
All right, let's turn to the weather out there right now. Of course, you're thinking about that breaking news we've been covering, the flooding in our area. We really need a chance to dry out here. Luckily, it seems like the rain has moved on, Adam.
Yeah, and we were talking at 5 o'clock. We had some parts of our area, Gonzales County in particular, with widespread 7+ inches of rainfall estimated by Doppler radar. Even up in Comal County around Canyon Lake and Bulverde, 5 to 7 inches of rainfall. Let's take a look at our almanac data. Today after midnight, we had just under an inch, but overall storm total, we had about 3.5 inches at the airport officially, but nearly double that on the west side of town along 1604, basically near Alamo Ranch and SeaWorld area. 85, that was our high temperature today, and I think it's going to be the same again tomorrow, but tomorrow is going to be a transitional day with big changes from start to finish. 83 now, dew point is 72, still sticky. 92 Cotulla, 91 Del Rio, those are the hot spots. Meanwhile, 82 in New Braunfels. So here's the bigger picture. I want to point this out. We actually have a cold front off to the north of us. And behind that cold front, which is now in the panhandle of Texas, some cooler, less humid, drier air. And that's going to make it here late tomorrow. So let's break it down for you. This evening, humid still, a calm wind. Fog developing after midnight, so anticipate reduced visibility for the morning commute tomorrow. 72 degrees and foggy to start your Friday. By the noon hour, we make it into the mid-80s. A few stray sprinkles or light showers are possible as the cold front hits at that time. And then temperatures actually drop into the afternoon when we would typically be seeing our high temperature. We'll be down in the 70s and 60s for Friday night football. Windy as well and becoming less humid. So big transitional changes for the second half of tomorrow. And that sets the stage for a cooler weekend. We're talking highs low to mid 70s and even a morning temperature of 48 on Sunday. Hello, fall.
Yeah, some welcome changes. Thanks, Adam.
All right, ready or not, the Spurs regular season is on its way. Are they ready, Larry?
Well, they're as ready as they probably can be because they got some new guys they're working in. But the guys who have been there for a handful of seasons, like Keldon Johnson, probably ready to go because he knows the Spurs way. Plus, he's been working on his game this offseason. And in the NFL, Terrence Steele is the real deal. Coming up. Spurs fans were thrilled to watch the silver and black scrimmage last night at the AT&T Center. Olympic gold medalist Keldon Johnson threw down some jam for the fans. He's been telling us he wants to add to his offensive game this season, and Derek White has noticed.
He's been shooting it really well in practice. He had the mid-range, and his three is looking a lot better. So you can tell he's been putting a lot of work in this offseason, and he's just going to keep getting better and better.
Spurs will close out the preseason tomorrow night, 7:30 at home with the Rockets.
Pro football coverage, powered by Davis Law Firm.
With starting right tackle La'el Collins out, serving his 5-game suspension for violating the NFL substance abuse policy, Dallas Cowboys turned to Steele High School alum Terrence Steele, who started 14 games at right tackle last season. Coach McCarthy's happy with how Steele is playing.
He's doing a really good job. I mean, he's a very conscientious young player. I think we all recognize the jump that he made from year 1 to year 2. I love the tenacity and the strength that he's playing with this year compared to last year.
Collins has one game left on his suspension. Now, Houston is getting ready to face the Indianapolis Colts on Sunday at Lucas Oil Stadium. Both teams are 1-4 this season. The Texans are 4-15 all-time in Indianapolis. They've won 3 of the last 6 there after losing the first 13 contests at the Colts. Rookie quarterback Davis Mills, who will make his first start in Indy, was asked about the Colts' defense.
A lot of talent, really good front 7. We're going to have to handle them and then try to just make plays on the edge and also mix kind of the run and pass game up. Keep them guessing, like I said, but just got to go out there and execute.
Colts will host the Texans Sunday at noon, and Indy is favored by 10. Taking to Calumet High School this morning for the District 27 5A Cross Country Championships. Mud all over the course due to the overnight rain, but there was no stopping Jefferson in the boys' race. Senior Adrian Orozco took first in 16 minutes, 28.55 seconds. That's a 5-minute, 19-second mile pace. He led a 1-2-3-4 finish in the event as the Mustangs secured their 4th straight district title.
It's amazing. I mean, I've always dreamed of being that #1 runner in a meet. And, you know, after whole high school career, finally able to do it. Everybody just trains so great. Everybody, no matter what you are in practice, what you are in a meet, everyone practices like they're the top runner, and it really pushes all of us.
Brackenridge Junior Faith Ramos won the girls' competition in 20 minutes, 8.9 seconds. The Eagles finished 1-2-3. To hear from her and catch a full recap of this morning's race, head on over to KSAT.com. The big game coverage road trip tomorrow night will start in Lavernia, where the Bears will host the Somerset Bulldogs in District 14 4A D1. Lavernia is 2-5 overall, but 1-0 in district after beating Uvalde 56-14 last Friday. Somerset is 5-1 this season, coming off of a bye. They will open district play with Lavernia after a much-needed week off from game action.
I felt we needed it. We were banged up, so it was good. It was really good to have a bye week, especially at that time, at that point of the year, getting ready for district. So I kind of like it. It was good.
They're pretty good. They have a good record, and so, but I think we have a pretty good chance against them. We've been doing pretty good this week, and coming off the momentum from last week, I think we have a pretty good shot at beating them.
We will hear more from Somerset and Lavernia tomorrow night at 6, and I'll be live at Lavernia for that show.
I like seeing those cross-country highlights.
Right, they're great.
Yeah.
Interviewing them after, you know what?
I know. Keep some endurance for the interview, right? Yeah. Thanks, Larry.
Our KSAT Q&A is up next. Time now to get the latest COVID questions answered with Dr. Ruth Bergren, infectious disease specialist with the Long School of Medicine at UT Health San Antonio, joining us once again on a Thursday. Doctor, thanks for being here as always. Let's start with the news today about the Moderna booster. An FDA advisory panel recommending that we go ahead and sign off on getting the Moderna booster. But what should we know about that process and where we are right now with that?
Right. So always after the FDA weighs in on something, we wait to see what the Advisory Council on Immunization Practices, called ACIP, we wait to see what the ACIP is going to say about it. They will then advise the CDC, and then the guideline becomes official. So, for example, our Metropolitan Health Department is not going to be first out of the blocks in administering the Moderna booster because we are waiting for that process with the ACIP and the CDC. But we anticipate that just as it did with the Pfizer vaccine, this will go through that process and there will be a recommendation.
People with Johnson & Johnson, what's your advice to them right now?
Hold tight. The advice about Johnson & Johnson boosters is coming, but we have to go through our processes. That's how we do keep people safe and how we avoid making any mistakes. So there will be information about that soon, but don't run out and get yourself boosted with a Moderna or a Pfizer. If you're a Johnson & Johnson person, just hang in there. Your guidelines are on the way.
Is it expected that with these booster shots, we're going to see what happened with the Pfizer, that it is recommended for certain people who are considered at high risk or of a certain age?
Yes, in fact, the groups that were recommended by FDA to get the Moderna booster mirror exactly those that were recommended to get the Pfizer booster. So it's people that are 65 and older or people that are 18 and up who have some sort of risk factor either by virtue of their job, such as healthcare workers, or by virtue of their underlying health conditions. And so those are going to be exactly mirrored in the Moderna as they were for the Pfizer.
A lot of talk about the pill from Merck. I'm not going to try to pronounce it, but there's been a lot of talk about it. What do you have to say about this? Because this is not a replacement for getting vaccinated, correct?
Right. Well, first of all, let's celebrate that it's good news that we're finally getting an oral pill. We've been in dire need of that for a long time. It's called molnupiravir, and it inhibits the replication of the SARS-CoV-2 virus. It's been studied in not a huge number of patients yet. The data that I have reviewed involves giving it to a little bit less than 1,000 outpatients, meaning non-hospitalized people and people who were at higher risk for bad outcomes. It was done in multiple countries. The United States was one of the participating countries, and they compared molnupiravir to placebo. And what happened was that in the molnupiravir group, 7.3% got hospitalized, and twice as many needed hospitalization if they got placebo. And then there were 8 deaths in the placebo group and no deaths in the molnupiravir group. So that data is not sufficient to extrapolate and really give you a definitive idea of how the drug will perform when it's given to larger groups and different kinds of groups, but it's certainly really, really encouraging to reduce hospitalization and reduce death if you use molnupiravir when you have COVID-19. Also, it was tested against various variants, the Gamma, Mu, and Delta variants, all demonstrated that they were susceptible to this drug, and it's a little bit pricey, cost about $700 for a course of therapy.
You know, there is still a thought out there among some that we're all going to get this at some point. We're all going to be exposed. So natural immunity is the way to go. Get infected, you've got the antibodies, you are protected. What is your response to somebody who thinks that that's their best bet?
Sure, I've heard that too, and it's not a crazy thought, right? We know, for instance, that with a lot of our childhood viral illnesses like chickenpox, you get the chickenpox, and you're pretty well protected against ever getting the chickenpox again, although you could get shingles. So why wouldn't that be the case for the coronavirus? Well, this is a different animal. It's a different kind of infection, and it behaves differently than those childhood viral illnesses that we're all so familiar with. And we're learning more about it as the months go by. One of the places that a lot of us look to understand has been Brazil, because Brazil has some cities that are very densely populated, and COVID-19 swept through there and infecting 70% or more of the population. And yet, when another variant came along subsequently, those people who had recovered in Brazil from the first go-round got sick again. And so each time you get COVID, you still have the risk of getting really sick and dying. You still have the risk of, if you recover, having long-haul COVID. So this is just not a good idea. Furthermore, the more we let the virus replicate and spread through the population, the more mutations it can mount, and the sneakier it's going to get in evading our immune responses that we have. So this idea of natural infection leading us to herd immunity is not a good one. We've estimated that here in the United States alone, that strategy could probably lead to up to 1 million excess deaths, which is a huge and unacceptable price to pay. So we don't want to rely on natural immunity to get us through the pandemic.
I have been saying throughout this whole thing that the medical workers, the frontline workers that are in our hospitals, ambulances, all over, are heroes in this whole thing. Are things calming down? Are you able to take a breath at the hospital now when it comes to COVID-19, since the numbers seem to be settling down a bit?
Yes. So if you go to the city's website, you'll still see the hospital stress score is kind of in the orange range. And that's because there's a lot of patients in the hospital. There's a lot of changes in the workforce. So it's not, things are not relaxed, Steve, but they are much better than they used to be. And so in San Antonio, we've dipped below the 500 mark. Fewer than 500 patients are in the hospital right now. When I go on the wards, it's not all COVID all the time. When we go to our teaching conferences, we're not hearing about yet another COVID case. So it seems a little bit back to normal, but it's not totally back to normal. And there's still a lot of stresses and strains on the healthcare system. And I just want to remind everybody, we cannot let our guard down in terms of striving to get more and more of our population vaccinated. We've met a lot of great milestones there, but we would love to see greater than 90% of the population vaccinated so that we can really start to breathe a sigh of relief.
Yeah, that's something that keeps sticking with me. We've seen these good numbers before. We have felt this sense of normalcy before. So Dr. Ruth Berggren, thanks as always for being here to educate us.
Happy to do it.
We'll be right back.
Welcome back, everybody. Still have some leftover closures as a result of the flooding we saw last night across the area. Transguide view here. This is 35 at Salado Creek. The frontage road here is closed. We have seen some people and certain vehicles drive through here. Wouldn't necessarily recommend it, but barricades are up for a reason. So when they're up, just treat them as they are and go around. It won't cost you too much time, especially better be safe than sorry when it comes to these sorts of things. But that is just one barricade there. Also, we've been talking about the situation in St. Hedwig, and we've seen that Greytown Road is going to be closed, and as well as FM 1518 while they continue that investigation there. Also watching some road closures here in Gonzales and Guadalupe counties, including FM 108 and FM 1681, again as a result of the flooding we saw last night. Some delays here on I-10 heading into town from Seguin. So it'll take you about 45 minutes right now to get from Seguin to San Antonio as a result of some slowdowns there. Let's take one quick look here on the west side before we toss it back to everybody. Had some major delays here on 151 close to Loop 410. Those are starting to clear, guys.
All right, thank you, Samuel. Look outside right now with live cam. We know we still have some flooding in the area, but the weather has definitely changed for the better at this point, and more pleasant changes headed this way, Adam.
Yeah, and noticeable changes, particularly if you like fall-like weather, you're going to like what we have over the next couple of days. So this evening, it's more of the same. Humidity, of course, is high. You're going to notice the mugginess, a little bit of cloud cover out there. Temperatures, 83 now. Mid-70s by 10 o'clock, midnight, low 70s, and that's when we'll have some areas of fog developing. Big transitional day tomorrow from sunrise to sunset, very different conditions. We'll talk about the cold front and also what it means for the weekend temperatures coming right up.
All right, so what a weather situation it was last night. I mean, there was some huge rainfall. I mean, some people's gauges overflowed last night, Adam.
Yeah, a lot of rain gauges, they top out at 6-7 inches and they were overflowing. Now, if you have an electronic version, which is what we call a tipping bucket rain gauge, then it measures indefinitely and basically I don't need to get into the details of a tipping bucket rain gauge, but I would love to.
How did you know that's what I was saying over here?
I just saw you turn to Myra.
I just said I was talking about rainfall, not the different kind of rain gauges.
I love tipping bucket rain gauges.
I know,
yeah.
Don't
I could
we all?
tell.
I mean,
looks like a bucket, little like seesaw-like device in the middle, and every time it rains, the 1/100th of an inch will tip it, and then the computer measures how many tips, and it goes back and forth every 100th of an inch.
I call them TBs.
Let's move on. Morning fog tomorrow. A cold front's going to arrive tomorrow afternoon, and then a much cooler weekend on the way. Let's get right to it. Talking about those rainfall totals, and we don't have rain gauges everywhere, so we look at Doppler radar estimates, and with our new dual pole Doppler radars, we have much more accurate estimates. And look at Gonzales County in particular, covered in purple, indicating 7 to 8 inches of rain estimated by Doppler radar, even a few little pockets of nearly 10 inches of rain estimated in Gonzales County. But that purple stretches all the way up to Luling, San Marcos, over toward Wimberley, and then Canyon Lake as well. That's where we had really the most rainfall. Around Bexar County is the north side of the county, 4 to 5 inches, and on the west side of Bexar County as well in that red area. The aquifer it's still soaking it up. Now, we love to get the rain right here in that bright purple band in northern Bexar County. That's the recharge zone. Rain there goes directly into the aquifer. And look at this. We had good rainfall right over the recharge zone and even the drainage zone farther to the north that obviously drains eventually into the aquifer. Aquifer, it's up 2.2 feet so far today and still responding. Quiet weather right now. The remnants of our storms have dissipated, and really the clouds left over the Gulf of Mexico. Some energy still up in Arkansas and Missouri left over, but that's it. Otherwise, it's quiet. Here's our next system, and it's a cold front that's going to hit us tomorrow. 80 in Lubbock, but 72 in Amarillo, 60 in Oklahoma, and temperatures fall off even more as you head north into the plains. That cold front and its cooler air is going to make it here. Not first thing in the morning. Tomorrow morning's going to be muggy, but by the afternoon and evening, you'll notice the changes. So 80s outside today, will be 80s again tomorrow. Even some low 90s west of town right now. But morning temperatures are going to take a more significant dive. Check out Sunday morning, 48 degrees on Sunday morning. So a big difference, especially in the morning temperatures this weekend. Dew points now still high in the 70s. We'll wake up to high humidity, but notice by the noon hour, humidity starts to drop into hill country. That drier air slowly works its way in, and closer to sunset tomorrow, we will all enjoy a lack of mugginess. And we're going to sweep away the humidity for Friday night all the way through the weekend and even into Monday. But the wind is going to pick up. That's something you'll notice for the second half of the day tomorrow, especially the evening. So Friday night football, cooler and windy with some gusts up to about 35 miles per hour. And I think most football games, temperatures will quickly be dropping through the 60s at that point. High temperatures this weekend with sunshine only in the low to mid 70s and pretty much staying there as we get into Monday as well. Oh, I don't have much of a voice left to keep going.
I'm worried about you. Yeah, I'm worried about you.
I'll be okay. So a viewer reached out to me, and this actually has to do with the National Day. You know, I like to poo-poo the national days a lot. This is one I can get behind. This is actually here a thermometer I made in commemoration of National White Cane Awareness Day, which is tomorrow. And this was actually signed into law by Texas's own President LBJ back in 1954. And what it does, it raises awareness for the visually impaired and those who are blind, you know, that use the white cane. Yep. And I talked to Frank Carrillo, who's part of the San Antonio chapter of the National Federation of the Blind. They're holding a rally at City Hall tomorrow around noon. They're going to have the thermometer with them. One thing I learned from him is that the white cane, it represents independence and courage and strength. And that's one thing they want people to know. I was happy to make them a thermometer. So Frank, I'm glad you reached out to me and we could get this together. As a description of the thermometer, it's my typical 6-inch thermometer with an appropriate range for our area, meaning 0 degrees to 112, and the Texas cutout in ash wood with the engravement on the sides. All right, let's get to our winner. Today's winner is out of San Antonio, and it's Catherine Thompson, the Catherine Thompson who I will be giving an email to very shortly.
I love the description of White Cane Day and what it stands for, what the white cane means and all that. I also have a suggestion.
Yep.
Maybe throat lozenge Thursday.
That's a really
maybe
good
after
idea.
After the show, throat lozenge Thursday.
No talking until 10 o'clock.
Yeah.
Do you think you can do that?
Ricola.
See, already.
He can't do it.
I can't do it. It's impossible.
Yeah, I know.
In case you missed
here
it.
comes your tea.
Coming up next. Oh, they're bringing in tea.
So nice. Patrick.
Good morning. It's Thursday, the 14th.
We're here at Old Grissom Road in Culebra along Culebra Creek, where a high water rescue took place just minutes ago. That car you see here behind me, you hardly see the lights now as the water is rising up above that car.
I'm located right below I-35 here at the River Ranch RV Resort, where people here are describing the scene as total chaos. The daylight really now exposing the extent of damage the torrential downpour of rain was able to provoke at this RV park.
I've been here all my life. My grandpa's been here all his life, and that's the worst I've ever seen it.
Yeah, that's Gonzales resident Mike Hansen capturing scary scenes as they unfolded, including the moment emergency crews rescued a family.
So many scary images. 2 people in San Antonio, meantime, they're okay after they were rescued on the far north side. Their vehicle also swept away by high waters.
A third person who was in the car able to get to dry land and direct firefighters towards the vehicle. The Bear Bulverde Fire Department said they were able to use a boat to retrieve the pair. Neither of them were hurt.
But in one of the vehicles, we know there was an adult male and a total of 3 children. 2 of those kids did make it out, but that is where that 5-year-old unfortunately passed away. They did retrieve her body. Medical examiner has taken custody of her, and her family has been notified of that recovery. In that second vehicle, just about 10 yards away, so not far, that's where that adult woman with 2 children inside were. The kids, they made it out. The 52-year-old woman did not.
That's just about all our time here at 6 o'clock. We are going to keep you updated on anything that develops in that recovery effort in East Bexar County and the flooding that is still out there.
We'll see you right back here on the Night Beat at 10.